Hello everybody, how are you doing? I just wanted to make a short video for you to go over a few things that you might find helpful, in particular in relation to dealing with stress and how it affects our bodies and breathing, and what we can do to reduce as much stress as we can and to help any sort of related pain that might come about because of this. So what happens is when we get stressed, our bodies go into the classic fight or flight mode, which is when it starts to produce big amounts of adrenaline and cortisol, which affect all our body systems, and breathing is one of the ones it affects, but it also happens to be one which we can do something about. So it's a really good idea just to take a few moments to just sort of listen to your own breathing and just try and be aware of breathing correctly, because it does make an enormous difference to how your body starts to feel generally. So first off, what we need to do is have good posture for breathing. If we're all sort of scrunched up, it doesn't really work quite so well. So when we are sitting or standing, if we start off at the top end, our high point needs to be this part of our head, the crown, not the front, the bit you see in the mirror. A lot of people get this a bit muddled up, but it's this back bit. If you imagine something pulling you from above, it should be this bit that is higher. That then enables a nice long back of the neck, and your spine will lengthen all the way down to the pelvis as a result. Now if you're sitting down, which is probably easiest to do for now, you need to sit down properly on your sitting bones, which if you're not sure where they are, just slip your fingers under your bottom and you can feel the bones underneath. They are your sitting bones, and you need to be perched right up on top of them. Don't roll behind them, because you end up in a bit of a lower back slump, and it then affects the rest of your body in a negative way. But try and get into a habit of perching right up on top of those bones, and then you have your legs down to the floor with your feet flat on the floor, ideally with your knees slightly lower than your hips. And nice relaxed spine, and that's a really good starting point to breathe well. Now, for breathing, it's really important to try and breathe right down into your abdomen. If you're only breathing to the top part here, it's adding to the stress, because you're only using the tops of your lungs, not your whole lungs, and as a result they can get very tight and restricted. And particularly if you've got asthma, it's an area which is very problematic and can lead to all sorts of neck, shoulder pain, headaches and all sorts. So a way to try and breathe correctly is have one hand up here and put another one on your abdomen, about there. And when you do a big intake of breath, try and make sure you're moving your lower hand and not this top one. So as you inhale, your lower hand will move out, because your diaphragm, which is about here, will be pushing down, and it pushes down on all your things, all your organs and your bits and pieces that are down here. It will push them out. So your lower hand will come out, your top hand should stay relatively still, and then you have a little pause and you breathe out and it will just tuck back in again. Now the other thing to remember is when you're breathing, your exhalation should be roughly about twice as long as your inhalation. So for example, if you breathe in for a count of 4, after the slight pause you should try and exhale for a count of 8. And you might find it more comfortable to do it a bit shorter than that to begin with, but that's generally the aim you need to try and have. And once you can do that, the lungs will be working to their best capacity. Now, a little bit of self-massage to help with the breathing as well is a good idea. So if you are already a bit restricted, you can do something about this. So your breathing muscles are, you've got your intercostal muscles, which are the ones between your ribs, all up around here and around here. And also you have some muscles at the top here, behind this big old one at the front, which is your your problematic sternocleidomastoid muscle, which can be the source of all sorts of mischief when it comes down to headaches and things. But if you go behind that, you get onto these muscles here, which are called the scalenes. Now the scalenes are effectively the tops of your lungs. And if you do lots of shallow breathing and sharp intakes of breath, they tend to get quite tight and stressed. I'm just going to show you a picture of the scalenes, which hopefully will make it a little more understandable. So, is that in focus? Yes. There they are. There's 3 of them. This is the big muscle at the front that runs diagonal, and they're just tucked behind it. So these are the ones. They're in a triangle, and they're ones just to have a prod about, see if you can feel them. If you do a sharp intake of breath, you'll notice they contract. You can feel them moving under your fingertips. So if you're not sure exactly where they are, just try that a few times and you can feel it just clench underneath. So in terms of self-massage, what you can do is find your sternum, which is the big bony plate down the middle, and if you just dig your fingers in between the ribs either side of it, so the ribs will be coming out like this, you can find the gap between them and just give a gentle prod, and ideally you should just feel pressure. If you feel any sort of pain anywhere, it's just a sign of some soft tissue restriction, and if you find any, just stop and hold, and after about a count of 10 to 15 it will just change and ideally should fade away, and you've just released a restriction. So you can just work your way along between the ribs, find anything that's sore. Around here, a bit of a bigger gap, so a bit easier to find your way around. You can go all the way around the back if you can reach, and you might find particularly around the lower ribs is quite a popular area where there might be a bit of restriction. Just work your way around and try and be able to feel all round without any soreness is the ideal state to get to. Now, a nice opening up as well would be just to get your fingertips either side of the sternum again and just gradually slide out to the side. This is probably slightly easier to do on bare skin than it is over a t-shirt. So you might want to try this in bed before you go to sleep at night. It might be easier like this. You can go to the opposite side, and in fact then you can also extend a shoulder back. It gives it a bit more room, and if you're lying down in bed you could just drop it off the side of the bed, and that will give it a lovely stretch as well, which will just really help to pull out all this sort of area. And don't forget our favourite stretch in the doorway. That also helps, just pulls this out. Now, for the scalenes, all you have to do is get your finger anywhere on the triangle with your head upright, anywhere that feels a little bit tender, just gently push and just tip your head over to the side at the same time, and then back up again. And you can just work your way all around the triangle and just find where it might be a little bit sore and just keep going. It's often quite sore near at the top, and some people might find it more sore on one side of the triangle than the other, but if you just work your way around, that will really help. And once all these muscles are unrestricted in an ideal world, your lungs will be able to move in and out much more freely, and you should feel better for it. So anyway, I hope that all makes sense and you might find it helpful, and I shall try and post another video again in a few days' time. Bye bye for now.